Hello, welcome to Jason the Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today's video, I just wanted to go over my thoughts on the Oscar ceremony since that's kind of a big part of my channel. I feel like I love talking about the Oscars. I have quite a bit of Oscar knowledge of history and all that. And so it's always a big thing. Every time the Oscars come around, it's kind of my Super Bowl in some senses, where I get, somewhat excited, even though the Oscars are not nearly as good as they used to be. It's still kind of exciting because it's the final big show of the year that we get to talk about the year of 2023 and the movies that came out and the movies that we're celebrating at the Oscars. Though most of the Oscar movies are not particularly that great. It's still fun to kind of talk about the year and the movies, and celebrate the films that came out and all of that. And Oscars, the whole idea, I think, is to have a good time. I mean, part of it is getting to, like who's going to win, that kind of, anticipation of seeing who's going to win and rooting for certain people maybe to win and be excited if someone wins. For me, I like to predict who's going to win, so that's always a fun part of it, trying to predict who's going to win. And then when someone who I think is going to win wins, I'm like, oh, all right, I'm excited, I guessed it right. Or if someone wins that I wasn't expecting, then it's kind of a shock, and you go, oh my God, they won. So there's some kind of fun in that. But also I think the ceremony itself is supposed to be very entertaining. And that's what I love about past ceremonies, when they've had really good entertainment. Not only have a really good host that'll tell some good jokes at the beginning of the ceremony, having some good musical numbers is also really fun. I think if you can do that. Also, I love funny kind of bits in between, especially when presenters come out to present. They have a good funny bit together that always elevates the show, I think. And then, of course, obviously you have the speeches. That's a big part of it. And you don't want speeches to be too long, but you want to be kind of emotional. You want to, be interesting, something to go, oh man, remember that speech? That was a good speech, So certain things like that. Of course, like I said, it helps if there's a movie that you actually like and you're rooting for. Very rarely is there ever a movie at the Oscars that I'm totally in love with. I'm like, man, I'm so excited to see them win. I feel like last time that happened was Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, where I was so excited it won 11 Oscars. And I remember just being like, man, I wanted to win every single Oscar. And I was so excited every time it won. And it was such a fun ceremony because of that, and getting to see it win Best Picture. And wow, it's so cool to see the Oscars actually give it to a fantasy movie, But we don't get those moments very often. But still, I want to talk about the ceremony and also about the winners as well, kind of my thoughts and all of that. So first off, this ceremony, I thought actually was a pretty good ceremony overall. I should say I didn't really watch the Oscars all the way through because I was at work. I had to work that Sunday, the Oscars, so I didn't actually get to watch the ceremony. I kind of had to watch YouTube clips after the fact, and so I kind of saw a lot of stuff. Not only did I see the monologue, the winners, and the speeches, I also watched any funny bit maybe they might have done. And I watched, I only really watched one, the musical, because I only care about one musical song, and that was I'm Just Ken. That was one I was most excited about to see. So I didn't really see any of the other musical numbers, but I saw enough of it. I think I got a pretty good gist of the ceremony itself. And I think overall, I think it was actually pretty good compared to the last, 7 or 8 years. Because the Oscars have been at a really low the last, I want to say 7 or 8 years. I think back when, I want to say it really went downhill back in 2018, I want to say, when, if I remember right, that was when Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars. And then, of course, he got canceled. The cancel culture was huge at that time, like it still is today. And because he tweeted something, a long time ago, and someone was offended by it, they ended up firing him from the position. And instead of having a host, which Oscars always had a host, that's a big part of having the Oscar ceremony, they decided to go no host, which maybe they've done a couple times before, but it's been a while. So I thought that was horrible. I hate the Oscars when there's no host. To me, that's one of my favorite parts of the Oscars, is if you get a good host in there, that can really make it a fun ceremony. Because to me, part of the fun is having the host go out there and then roast all the nominees and stuff, and make fun of them. That's the fun part of it. Again, I love a good roast, and it's fun if the people that you're roasting, it's all in good fun. So the people you're roasting usually have a good time. They're laughing at themselves, and it's fun to see people laugh at themselves. It's a good moment, especially, all these high rich celebrities with these, $1 million dresses and jewelry and, coming out. And then it's like, you gotta laugh at yourself. It's a little ridiculous. You're super highly rich and you're at a ceremony getting awarded and applauded by other rich socialites, and whatnot. But yeah, so I hated when they went no host. And then the very next year, I think they went no host again. They said, hey, we like the no host thing. And I was like, no, the no host thing is horrible. Or that might have been 2020. I think 2020 they went no host and it was kind of horrible. And then they started this thing where Jimmy Kimmel started being like the major host. And if I'll say one thing, the biggest problem of this Oscar, same big problem of the last several Oscars, is the horrible host. And my friend Elliot from IMO Reviews, he was talking about the Oscars recently this last week, and he nailed it right in the head. Jimmy Kimmel is a horrible host. He is by far the worst part of this Oscar ceremony, and he has been for the last 5 years. He's hosted, this is I think his fourth time in 5 years, I want to say, that he's hosted the Oscars. Maybe I think he did 2 in a row, and then my memory, I don't remember exactly, but I think he did maybe 2 in a row. And then we had the 3 women hosting it, which was also horrible. And then he came back, and I think he hosted the last 2 times. Anyway, so I don't know what this deal is. Why they keep going back to him, because he has a show on ABC, I guess, and the Oscars are usually on ABC. So they grab the guy that's already with the company. I don't know. It's just not interesting. Of all the people you can get to host that are really funny and talented, why do you go with Jimmy Kimmel, who is not funny and not talented? And he's never been funny, this guy. He's been one of the worst hosts I've ever seen host the Oscars. And he's done it 4 times now. And it's been some of the worst I've seen. He maybe had 3 jokes that made me laugh the whole show. And then he had this whole thing about Trump. He's such a stupid liberal, leftist. You always have to talk about liberal ideologues, and you always have to go after Trump. And it's I don't need all these politics. He loves to talk about politics. And it's no, just be funny. You don't have to talk about politics. And he's one of the worst at it, at having to, not be funny and talk about politics. And it's no, I don't need that at all in my Oscar ceremony. And so he did a couple of things that I didn't like. That's almost every year someone says something stupid that I absolutely hate that's political. And I go, man, why do we have to be political? And so that's why I hate Jim Kimmel. And I hope he never hosts again, 4 times enough. I mean, after the first time, I was like, man, I hope he never comes back. And he came back 3 more times. I'm like, what are you doing, Oscars? You're trying to make people watch the ceremony. You gotta get someone better than Jimmy Kimmel. That's the number one thing that the Oscars has to do. He has that late night show, which I think he quit maybe recently or something like that, and it's been abysmal. It's the ratings have been really horrible. And I've seen a couple episodes here and there, and I never thought he was funny. Never thought the show was that funny. Amongst all I used to love late night TV. I don't watch it anymore, but when you had David Letterman and Jay Leno were the top, and then Conan O'Brien's always been my favorite. And then after they've all kind of left and went on, we've gotten some horrible late night hosts, and Jimmy Kimmel's at the top of my list of horrible hosts. But I know I'm bashing on him a lot, but that's just I just really hate that they have him there. It's funny, one guy that was really funny on the show was John Mulaney, who is a much more talented comedian than Jimmy Kimmel. And his whole bit, he did a whole kind of bit about sound and stuff that actually was funny, and the audience loved it. And Mulaney is a funny comedian. He's not my favorite. I've seen some of his stand-up, and it's decent. He has a decent stand-up routine. He used to write for Saturday Night Live as well. And a lot of people are saying he should host next time, and I'm like, yeah, I'm all for it. Let's move it on. Let's not do Jimmy Kimmel ever again, and let's get Maloney. Maloney would be so much better. I think he could do a good job hosting. So yeah, I'm all for that. Get him in there. Get somebody. I thought Kevin Hart would have been a great host. It just sucks that he got, through this whole cancel culture, kind of ruined what could have been a good Oscar ceremony. It's just yeah, these woke leftists just hurting themselves. But anyway, so yeah, besides that, I think there's a lot of, but there's a lot of positives as well. I said that's the major negative. Um, a couple of things about, Oscar ceremony. Like I said, one thing is like, man, if they can, I always said, if you want to make the Oscars better, you need to nominate better movies that people actually care about and watch. So many times the Oscars, the movies that are getting the Oscars are movies that nobody watches or nobody cares about, the regular audience. And it's still not this 10 movies that got nominated for Best Picture, let's say, still not a great 10, but there's a couple good stuff here. For me, there's 3 movies out of the 10 that I gave a positive review, which still is not great. That means there's 7 movies that I did not like that got nominated for Best Picture. But in comparison to last year I only had 1 movie that I gave a positive review, and that was Top Gun Maverick. I gave Top Gun Maverick like a 3 out of 5. That was the only positive review. There were so many 1.5 stars last year. The movies were really horrible. Movies this year are slightly better, not much, but I think I do appreciate that we had Holdovers and Past Lives are my 2 favorite movies that got nominated for Best Picture. Even though Holdovers got 1 Oscar and Past Lives got 0, so my 2 favorite movies didn't really do that well, unfortunately. Oppenheimer I thought was okay. It came out, the big winner of the night with 7 Oscars total. So, and I'm fine with that. Again, that was my 3rd favorite Best Picture nominee out of the 10. So, I gave it a positive review. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. I think it's an interesting subject matter. I think the performances are really good, so I'm really happy about the performances, getting Oscars there. And also Christopher Nolan, it seemed like it was his time. He's been around long enough. He's done some good movies, some bad movies, but he also done some real good movies. So it felt like it was time for him to get his Oscar. So I think that was all good in total. The ceremony, there definitely was some fun moments, though. And that's why I think the ceremony itself was actually pretty good from what I could see. I didn't see the whole thing all the way through. I just saw clips. But for me, the best moment of the whole night was Ryan Gosling singing "I'm Just Ken," and that was the one I was like really excited for, and it was the best moment. It brought the house down. Him starting to sing the song behind Margot Robbie was so brilliant because Margot Robbie was just laughing. She was just having a good time, and he was totally in character, and he was totally playing the character, and it was hilarious the way he did it and how he started off in the audience and then made his way. It was really well choreographed. He had a lot of extra dancers in there. Some other members from the movie kind of appeared in the sequence. He had this great, pink suit and gloves, and he really hammed it up in the performance, which was great. And he actually sang it really well. Like, I forget, Ryan Gosling actually has a pretty good voice. And I think, I didn't know that, except that I was like thinking, he was like a Mouseketeer, I think, back in the day when he was a kid. He was part of the, Mickey Mouse Club thing. So all of them became singers, like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, I think, were part of that. And they all became big singers. So maybe he has a singing background. I don't know if I see him in a musical, though, but I'd love to see him sing more. I thought he did great. It was such a fun moment. I loved when he came back into the audience, and you had Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig and America Ferrera there in their dresses, and they're singing along, and he's giving them the mic to sing. Like, that was a fun moment. And then he even went over to Emma Stone, who was in the front row, and had her kind of sing along, and which is cool because they both were in La La Land together, which was a big, contender for Best Picture back in the day, and they both got nominated, and Emma Stone won Best Actress for that as well. So that was a cool moment as well. Anyways, but yeah, that was definitely the best moment of the whole night. I love that. But there was some good funny banter, like Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt had a great fun banter about Oppenheimer versus Barbie, because that was the big story of this last summer, was Barbenheimer. Barbie and Oppenheimer both becoming huge. Came out the very same day. A lot of people saw both movies like the same day. That was like the big event of the year. And Barbie was the biggest movie of the year, and Oppenheimer was one of the biggest movies of the year, and then ended up being the biggest Oscar winner of the year. So they both had great years, and that back and forth was great. Ryan Gosling was really good. Like he really nailed it in this whole ceremony. I think he was the highlight, the star, MVP of the Oscars was Ryan Gosling. We also had a really funny moment with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. I thought provided maybe the funniest moment of the night. They came out to present and they said, we're out here for obvious reasons. What you thinking? Oh, they started together in Twins and Junior. So you're thinking, yeah, they're out here because they've starred in movies together. And then Arnold Schwarzenegger said, we both tried to kill Batman. So that was a funny moment of like, oh yeah, they both were villains of Batman movies, with Schwarzenegger being Mr. Freeze and Danny DeVito being the Penguin, and them talking about, yeah, I hate that Batman, that son of a, he kept saying, Schwarzenegger kept saying that son of a, Bitch, and which was funny, and then they're talking about like how they got defeated, and how did he defeat you? Heat, no love. It was great moments, and then they spot Michael Keaton in the audience, which is funny only because one of the funny things is that he was not the Batman for Mr. Freeze, though. That was Val Kilmer, I believe. No, that was George Clooney. George Clooney was Batman, so that didn't make any sense for Schwarzenegger, but it did for Danny DeVito because he was Batman to his Penguin. But anyways, but it's still kind of funny. They pick out Michael Keaton in the audience, goes, there he is, there's Batman. You have a lot of nerves showing up here. And then Michael Keaton played it off so funny, the way he very seriously, like, come on, bring it, Like, it was one of the greatest moments of the night. But yeah, there's other stuff like Kate McKinnon saying she sent nude pictures to somebody, and who was it? And then it reveals that it was to Spielberg, pointed himself that he's the one who got the nude pics. Very funny moment. Always great when he gets Steven Spielberg involved. The John Cena naked scene, that's been talked about a lot. Like, it was a lot of people thought, I think it got a lot, maybe some flack, that people didn't like that scene, maybe, or that part in the ceremony. I thought it was a really funny scene, actually. I thought John Cena was really funny and did a good job. I mean, it was a little weird, him walking out pretty much naked. And the thing about Cena is he's like probably 50 years old by now. Like, he's probably in his 50s, and he's still in incredible shape because he's a wrestler, in better shape than he should be. It's still a little awkward seeing him come out naked. But the joke is, of course, that it's the 50th anniversary of the Streaker back in 1974. Streaker ran across the stage naked, and they were playing homage to that. So I thought that was funny that they played homage to a thing that happened 50 years ago. I thought that was a good idea. And the way John Cena played it off, John Cena appearing and going, I don't want to do this anymore. like he's backing out at the last minute. A lot of people thought it was weird, came out naked. I agree that it was almost a little too much, but overall, funny bit. I thought John Cena played it off brilliantly. But yeah, there's a lot of, and I'm probably missing some stuff, but overall, I thought there was some really good banter and some funny bits, and I love that. To me, if you can get a good Oscar host that gives a good 10-minute stand-up roasting everybody, I love that, and I love the funny bits in between. And if you can get some good musicals like I'm Just Ken, that makes the ceremony that entertaining. So that's the ceremony itself. I think they did a overall pretty good job, except for the host. But let's talk about the categories themselves. I myself guessed 14 out of 20 correctly, which, like I said, did okay because there was some surprises here. I follow along a lot of Oscar, experts that predict, and they all got the same things. Most of them got the same things wrong that I got wrong, because there's a couple categories that was like a coin flip, and there's some where I was not expecting the winner, and neither were all the Oscar experts. So I wasn't the only one. So there was some surprises. Most of the big ones, there weren't surprises, but some of the smaller categories, there's a couple of surprises there, which, kind of keeps it interesting. Like I said, Oppenheimer is the big winner. I think they're nominated at least 8 times and got 7 of them. They almost won every single one they were nominated for. Obviously, Best Picture was the big one. Best Director for Christopher Nolan, like I said, his first Oscar, which is very commendable. Even though I'm not the biggest Christopher Nolan fan, I think he deserves it here. And maybe what I'm so excited for was seeing Cillian Murphy win Best Actor and Rob Downey Jr. win Best Supporting Actor. I was so excited for those two, so happy for them. Cillian Murphy, I was thinking, man, I remember the first time I saw him in a movie, and it was a Christopher Nolan movie, of course, because he's been in every single Christopher Nolan movie. But when he was in Batman Begins, first time I saw Batman Begins, and I was like, who's this guy playing the Scarecrow? Like, I never seen Cillian Murphy before, and to me, he was like the best part of the whole movie. He was the best villain. Yeah, he's my favorite character and actor in that movie. And he came back a little bit in cameos in the second, third one, but to me, he hammed it up a little bit, maybe, but it worked really well because the Scarecrow character is supposed to be a little unhinged, a little crazy, and the way he portrayed it when he's like, "That's the Batman," like he gave this like really over the top performance. But ever since then, I was like, I want to see more Cillian Murphy. So every time Cillian Murphy was in a movie or something, I was like all in for it. So like, I want to see him do more. I don't think he did anything maybe quite as good as that movie though. He was in like Inception in a smaller part. He played a actually pretty good villain in this kind of thriller called Red Eye, which he actually does a good job in that as a villain. Um, but he's a guy I see every once in a while and think he does a pretty good job. And this is definitely his biggest role where he got the lead because he's always usually supporting. So it was nice to see him. In fact, when I first saw that Oppenheimer's coming out and he was the lead, my first thought was, man, I hope Cillian Murphy gets nominated for an Oscar because the guy deserves it. He's been giving so many great performances over the years that when he got nominated, I was like, oh man, that's so great to see him finally get it. And then he actually won. That was even cooler. I'm like, wow, it's so cool to see a guy that's kind of more of a supporting actor get put in the lead role and he wins the Oscar, a huge moment for him. So happy for Cillian Murphy. I think he's a great actor. Even though I love Paul Giamatti, I'd love to see him win an Oscar. He was very deserving for The Holdovers, which was my favorite movie that it was nominated, but still happy for him. And Robert Downey Jr., he's such a great actor, one of my favorite actors today. He's given so many great performances over the years. I mean, he so deserves an Oscar at this point. In my opinion, he should have got an Oscar for Avengers Endgame. I thought he gave an absolutely amazing performance. And he gives performances in all of the Marvel movies as Tony Stark. And it's one of the greatest characters ever created. And he's played that character, so many times. And he never got an Oscar for it. And it's like, because it's a superhero movie, they don't give him Oscars. But man, he deserved it. He has some great emotional moments in those movies, besides being funny and charismatic. So it's so great seeing him in this role, which was another good performance by him. And it's like, man, he so deserved it. Again, so happy to see him finally get one. But yeah, so Oppenheimer, huge success there. The other big one really was, which I was not expecting in some senses, was Poor Things. Even though I thought Poor Things was, up there as one of the front runners, maybe. It ended up coming away with 4 Oscars, which I was expecting maybe come away with 1 or 2, but 4. It's like, wow, that was the second most Oscars of the night. And where it really kind of surprised me, well, I guess we talk about Best Actress. I was predicting Lily Gladstone, and almost everybody was predicting Lily Gladstone because she just won the SAG like a week ago before the Oscars. And usually when you win the SAG, that's a pretty good indicator that you're going to win the Oscar. Last year, every single actor that won the SAG award won the Oscar. So that's why, to me, I was like, I give a lot to the SAG, but now I have to rethink everything because Lily Gladstone won the SAG and then lost the Oscar. So I'm like, okay, that's not a for sure thing. And I guess I was really going for Lily Gladstone because Emma Stone already won an Oscar, and Emma Stone's a huge, star. But Lily Gladstone's like an unknown actress, so it'd been cool to see her win. It'd been more of an underdog story. Plus, she's Native American, so they could say, oh, first Native American to win an acting Oscar. So it's always cool when you get to those moments. Like last year, Michelle Yeoh was the first, Asian woman to win Best Actress or something, and so that's a cool moment anytime those kind of stuff happen. So, it could have been him watching history in the making, so I was really going for Lily Gladstone, but, Emma Stone, she was talked about the whole season as being the best actress and probably gave the best performance. So I kind of understand it though. She's in her early 30s and she has 2 Oscars already. I mean, and been nominated like 5 times. I mean, what a incredible career. From what I can think of, there's been maybe 15 or 16 actresses that have won 2 or more Best Actress Oscars. So it puts her in a pretty elite group of actresses as, one of the greatest actresses I think we've ever had, which is pretty cool at such a young age. She's done, I say young age, fairly young age, in her 30s, that she's done just an incredible job. And she's one of my favorite actresses out there. I love Emma Stone. anytime she's in the movie, I'm interested. So good for her there. Though I was upset that I predicted wrong there and got that category incorrectly. It was surprising that they got makeup and hairstyling here. I was really thinking everybody thought Maestro. I mean, everybody I heard said Maestro was going to win this, so I went for Maestro, and so I was really shocked that Poor Things won. Even though I think Poor Things should have won because the makeup work on Willem Dafoe was amazing in that movie, and I thought I should have won just for that makeup job there. So it was very deserving. I just went with everybody and went with Maestro because that's just the way. I don't know why everybody, because of the old man makeup, I guess. But anyways, but yeah, so I was a little surprised there. Surprised about production design. I went with Barbie on that. I went to Poor Things. And also costuming, I went with Barbie and went to Poor Things. To me, it was like, I can kind of see that. It was like either Barbie or Poor Things, and I guessed wrong. It was like one of those 50-50, it either goes to one or the other, and I went with the wrong one. I went with Barbie because I just thought Barbie was more iconic because everybody was wearing pink. And the costumes were a big deal of that movie. So I just thought, and it was the big movie of the year. So I just thought Barbie would get a couple of Oscars. But no, the Academy loved Poor Things quite a bit and got those other big ones there. Those were really only two big ones, to be honest. They kind of spread out the love, and a couple of the movies came out with nothing. You talk about Zone of Interest actually did pretty well. Of course, it came with Best International Film. We all knew that. But I was surprised it came out with Best Sound a little bit. I thought for sure Oppenheimer, that was the one that it missed. And went to Zone of Interest, which to me, I don't know. People said that they were impressed with the sound. I didn't get it. Like, I was not that impressed with Zone of Interest at all. So I was a little surprised there, though I knew there's a possibility of Zone of Interest, but I predicted that wrong for Zone of Interest. So Zone of Interest came out with 2, so that's pretty good for Zone of Interest, to be honest. The Holdovers, they get the 1 Oscar with Divine Joy Randolph, who gave the best speech of the night. She was so emotional. She was crying the whole time. I loved it. It was a great speech. Really happy for Divine Joy Randolph getting that there. So yeah, great for Holdovers getting that one. American Fiction came out with the adapted screenplay. I predicted that correctly. I thought it would. Everybody seemed to think that was going to win. Nanny Fall came with the original screenplay. I predicted that correctly. Everybody was kind of predicting that because it was winning a lot of awards up to that point. Anyway, so interesting that got in there. To me, some of the big losers, to me, Barbie was a big loser. It came in with 1 Oscar. That was Best Song, which everybody knew it was probably going to win Best Song. But man, messed out on everything else, besides not getting a Best Actress nominee or Best Director nominee, and then losing out on, like I said, I can't believe it lost out on costume and production design. I thought it was definitely going to get some of those. So to me, it came out kind of a big loser, and which is weird because it was the big movie of the year. It was this liberal feminist movie. I thought the Academy would love this liberal feminist movie and go for it, but they ended up not going for it for whatever reason anyway. So, and I'm kind of happy because I didn't like Barbie, so I'm glad it kind of came out a loser. Past Lives, you knew it probably wouldn't get any Oscars, so it didn't get nominated very much, but unfortunate. It should have been original screenplay. It was the best screenplay of the year, in my opinion. Maestro, wow, really went out 0. I mean, early on, people thought Bradley Cooper would win, but he was nowhere near going to win Best Actor. Though he got nominated, he didn't get a Best Director nomination. Though he got Best Picture nomination out of it. And the one that everybody thought was going to win, Makeup, didn't get it. So kind of a big 0 for Maestro. The other one was Killers of the Flower Moon. To me, that was one everybody talked about. Early on, everybody was expecting this to be a big contender for Best Picture because it's a Martin Scorsese film. So anytime Martin Scorsese makes a film, you automatically think Best Picture, his movies have been so long and overhyped and terrible. Like Irishman was terrible, but this was maybe slightly better, but still it's way too long. I didn't like the movie. But it did get a lot of Oscar nominations. It came with 0, so kind of a big loser for Killers of the Flower Moon. Even Lily Gladstone had a good chance of getting Best Actress and couldn't even get that. So the Academy really did not care for Martin Scorsese this year, getting all those nominations. I thought he'd get at least 1 Oscar, and no, nothing. So not great for that. A couple of things. Godzilla Minus One got an Oscar. A lot of people excited about that. That was kind of the little engine that could. No one talked about, and then became a huge kind of movie at the end of the year. So I predict that correctly because I thought, well, people love it. it's going to get the best visual effects, and it did. So good for it getting there. Kind of this movie that was only like $15 million getting an Oscar. Trying to think what else. The other big surprise for me was Best Animated Movie. I thought for sure Across the Universe was going to get it. From the very beginning, I thought Across the Universe was the clear winner here. But then The Boy the Heron was winning some stuff, like I think it won the Golden Globe maybe and something else. So I knew Boy the Heron had a good chance of winning here, but I went with my heart, and that was Across the Universe was my second favorite movie of the year. It was an amazing movie. And then of course they give it to Boy and the Heron, which I haven't seen, but I'm not a fan of anime, so I kind of hate seeing that movie win. But you know, some people love anime, and that was I guess a critical favorite. And the Academy does love nominating anime, though usually they don't win, I don't think, very often. But a big win for Miyazaki, I think his name is, who was the big, anime director who did all the Ghibli studio movies. So I guess it's one of those things where he finally got an Oscar. He's been, around for so long. They finally wanted to give him one, so they gave him one for this, Boy and the Heron. Though I think Cross the Universe really deserved it. Into the Spider-Verse won it, so I don't know if it was like, well, we already gave them one Oscar, we don't need to give them a second Oscar. I think this movie was better than Into the Spider-Verse, so that was somewhat shocking. Not super shocking, but a little shocking that didn't win, and I missed out on that one. Yeah, some of the bigger Oscar ones that I was a little shocked at. I did want to mention that John Lennon's and Yoko Ono's son, Sean Lennon, won an Oscar for, I think it was a short animated film or something like that, or documentary. Yeah, he won an Oscar for some movie based on like songs from John and Yoko Ono or something like that. John Lennon and Yoko Ono. So it's cool. John Lennon's son got an Oscar now, so it's interesting. Also, Wes Anderson won an Oscar for a short film that he made. So it's interesting. He's made all these, he's really known for his, live action movies, of course, and his animation, stop motion animation movies. And he's been nominated, of course. The Grand Budapest Hotel was nominated for Best Picture, and he was nominated, I think, for Best Director and all this stuff. But he didn't get any Oscars for his kind of classic live action movies, but for a short. So, but still, it's cool to see Wes Anderson finally get an Oscar as well. Anyway, so that's kind of cool. Anyways, I'm going kind of long here, but that's some of my thoughts. I think, like I said, overall, it was a better Oscar than it has been lately, which is great to see. Hope they get a better host next year and they continue doing this and continue giving us some better Oscar ceremonies, and hopefully there'll be a good movie that I can root for next year. But yeah, feel free to comment what are your thoughts on the Oscars this year. If you watch it, probably none of you watched it, but if anybody did, love to hear your thoughts on it. What was your favorite part? All that, put in the comments. I'll definitely comment back. Anyways, besides that, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for liking it, and I hope you have a good day.